Hi, this is Braden Holtby.
Hey, this is Tanner the Bulldozer Bozer.
Hi, this is Brian Burke from Toronto, Ontario.
This is Daryl Sutter.
Hello, everyone. I'm Carly Agro from Sportsnet Central.
This is Jay Onright.
This is Quick Dick coming to you from Toughnut, Saskatchewan.
Hey, everybody. My name is Theo Fleury.
This is Kelly Rudy.
This is Corey Cross.
This is Wade Redden.
This is Jordan Tutu.
My name is Jim Pattison.
Hey, it's Ron McLean, Hockey Night in Canada and Rogers Hometown Hockey, and welcome to the Sean Newman Podcast.
Welcome to the podcast, folks. I hope you had a great weekend. Happy Monday. I tell you what, it was a beautiful weekend. We got out and did a little skating on the pond, and just enjoyed the weather for what it was. And I hope you guys had a great weekend. Today on tap, we have a great one. But before we get there, let's get to today's episode sponsors. Carly and the team, Carly Clausen that is, and the team over at Windsor Plywood, builders of the podcast studio table for everything wood. These are the guys. I should mention in the YouTube videos, the background is all come from Windsor Plywood as well. They got tons of stuff and just high quality. For everything wood, I promise these are the guys, whether we're talking about mantles, decks, windows, doors, or sheds. When you want quality, stop in and see the group at Windsor Plywood, or just hop on your phone, hop onto their Instagram or Facebook page, and see some of the cool stuff you can get there. I promise you're going to go, man, I didn't realize you could get that, man, Lloyd. Well, yes, you can, all right? Give them a call today, 780-875-9663. Jen Gilbert and the team over at Coldwell Banker Cityside Realty have been in business for over 40 years. Since 1976, they've served Lloydminster and the surrounding community. They're passionate about our community, and they pride themselves on giving back through volunteer opportunities and partnerships as often as they can. Here's a random one for you. This past week, they were collecting plastic bags, and I went, you're what now? They're collecting plastic bags. And you're going, okay, yeah, that's great. Okay, what are you doing with them? Well, there was a girl from North Battleford, Lacey Lehman. You can look her up on Facebook. And she was collecting plastic bags to weave mats for the homeless. And I looked at them. I'm telling you, they look pretty, like the pictures I saw, I'm like, oh, those are pretty cool. Well, that's what Coldwell Banker saw the same thing. And instead of just being, oh, hey, here's a couple of plastic bags, they became a drop-off center. And we're getting tons of plastic bags for Lacey and her project. And so that's the team you're getting involved with over at Coldwell Banker. They know home is truly where awesomeness happens. They know where Lloydminster is truly where awesomeness happens, and they're always on top of it, looking for cool ways to partner with you folks. Give them a call. They're open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 780-875-3343. Mortgage broker. Maybe you buy a house and you need a little mortgage broker. How about Jill Fisher? Now, I was just chatting with her a couple days ago, and I don't want to get into too specifics, but mortgage rates right now are low. And so I was hassling her, although, you know what I love about the people I'm working with? I think it's hassling, but they actually enjoy what they do, which is fantastic, right? Whoever thought somebody could be so passionate about mortgage brokering? To me, that doesn't sound that fun. I'm sorry, Joe. But that doesn't matter. You're not dealing with me. You're dealing with her. And honestly, she sat and talked to me for half an hour on the phone, walked me through a bunch of things, and she's making this process, like, kind of fun. I never thought I would enjoy talking about house mortgages so much, but I tell you what, right now, if you're unsure of where your house mortgage is at or what you possibly could do, I suggest you give her a call, 780-872-2914. She's exceptional at what she does, and I'm sure she can help you. She serves the areas of Lloydminster, Bonnyville, Cold Lake, and Vermilion, and she's looking forward to working with you for all your mortgage needs. Clay Smiley and Prophet River. Well, what can I say about Clay? Clay is one class act guy. He started his store when he was, he started at his garage, but he was a school teacher who had a fascination with guns, and I was saying it the last couple weeks here. He started out wanting to get a Cooper rifle, but was unable to find it in Canada. And, true Clay fashion, instead of just being, okay, well, I can't get it, well, he decides to look into importing said Cooper and does that. And then that leads to where he is at now. 18 years later, and so that was in 2002. Now in 2020, Prophet River has grown into a major retailer of firearms, optics, and accessories, serving all of Canada. So all you got to do is go to profitriver.com and check them out today. Doesn't matter where you're sitting at here in Canada. They can help you find your needs or fill your needs when it comes to guns, ammo, all that good stuff, accessories. Clint and the team over at Trophy Gallery, we were talking yesterday or last week. I still have the Crosby jersey. It hasn't been picked up yet. It is bought. But he's got a Jonathan Taves jersey, if you're interested in Johnny Tave, sitting on his wall. He does so much more than just, medals, signage. I was talking about name tags for the dressing room last week. He did all the Hillman Hitman name tags, engravings, that kind of thing. Like, he's just got a ton. And if you go online, go to trophygallery.ca. He's got over 5,000 products online. They ship Canada-wide, and if you use Newman for your promo code, you get 15% off. That's any sport, anytime, from bodybuilding to hockey. I'm telling you, trophies, plaques, and medals. Visit Trophy Gallery today. SNP Billboard, the team over at Read and Write do an amazing job, and they have made me look pretty smart with all my adventures, whether it's the quote on the wall, the SNP logo behind my head, or the billboard across from UFA. If you want some outdoor signage, you make sure you give the team over at Read and Write a call, and I suggest talking to Deanna Wildner. She's fantastic to work for. Gartner Management is a Lloydminster-based company specializing in all types of rental properties. That's where the studio's at. Give Wade Gartner a call. Promise he won't disappoint you. He's got anything from small office spaces to 6,000 square foot commercial space. His number is 780-808-5025. Now, I know COVID rules are making it a little bit tough if you can't get into any of these businesses, but if you can, or you bump into them outside, maybe through your mask, you can say, hey, I heard about you on the podcast. It helps me know that you guys are listening. It helps them know you're listening, and would appreciate it. And if you're interested in advertising on the show, visit SeanNewmanPodcast.com, top right corner, hit the contact button, and send me your info. We are closing in on having 2021 slowly closed off, which is amazing. I got to say, it's amazing, the businesses that have approached and hopped on board for 2021. Super pumped. But there is still room, so if you want to get involved, stop on in, and we'll see if we can't find something that'll work for the both of us. All right? Now, let's get on to that T-Bar 1 Tale of the Tape. Originally from Kelowna, British Columbia, he signed as a free agent with the Toronto Bluejays in the summer of 1989. He started his first game in the majors in 1994, and over his career he would spend time with the Blue Jays, Seattle Mariners, Kansas City Royals, and the Philadelphia Phillies. He represented Team Canada at the 2004 Summer Olympics in Athens, Greece. I'm talking about Paul Spoljaric. So buckle up. Here we go.
This is Paul Spoljaric. Welcome to the Sean Newman Podcast.
Welcome to the Sean Newman Podcast. Today, I'm joined by Paul Spoljaric. So first off, thanks for hopping on. I hope I didn't torture that name.
No, you actually said it perfectly. Well done.
Hey. Well, I was about to say to you, you're dealing with a hockey guy, right? I love the Blue Jays. But it is opening night for the NHL, and I am here with you. That is how much I was looking forward to this.
Really? Are you telling me you're going to watch Montreal in Toronto tonight?
Hell no. The Oilers play tonight. I'm hoping we can get this out of the way and then get me back in time to watch the Oilers win a hockey game.
There you go.
Yeah.
Will there be some fisticuffs thrown tonight? I think there's some bad blood running from last year still, no?
I don't know. The new NHL, maybe. I don't know. I'm looking forward to this Canadian division, right? Like, we're going to get all the Canadian teams playing each other a ton. And here in Alberta, as you know, the old Battle of Alberta is going to get to happen many a time. And I think everybody in the province is looking forward to that. I just wish, like everyone, you wish there would be fans in the stands. That's all.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the hard part for sure. I mean, I can't even imagine what those guys are going through now, not being able to have fans in the stands. You know what it's like, man, how motivated you get, the noise, the roar, the energy that's in the building, all that stuff matters. And not having that there, I can't imagine playing in front of an empty stadium. That would just be plain weird.
Well, it puts them right where all of us senior hockey players out in Saskatchewan are, right? Like on a regular game on a Wednesday night, you got 3 fans doing the slow clap for you, and you're like, might as well just not have any fans. This is kind of awkward.
Yeah, but they carry the cooler, don't they?
They most certainly do. Yeah.
They're most welcome. They're the best fans to have.
Well, I'd love to sit here and talk about hockey with you, but I mean, your story is certainly not about hockey. It is about baseball, and you, sir, I believe are going to be episode 145 for me, and you're the first baseball guy, true baseball guy I've had on.
Wow. Well, I feel honored. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, you played for the Bluejays, and the Bluejays have this like weird. I mean, it's cool because we're in Canada, but like normally you go on like proximity, and when it comes to basketball and baseball, Toronto has the entire market because there's nobody to compete with in all of Canada. So when the Blue Jays are doing well, I mean, they become Canada's team. And when they aren't doing well, it's, it's baseball on this side of the world, and people go to the lake and carry on with life kind of thing. But
Yeah.
I guess, to start with, I know how hockey players and the system is built, especially out in the West, probably all across now North America, on how you get to the next level and the next level after that and the next level after that. And the baseball guys I talked to today said, man, you got to ask what a kid in the 80s was doing to make it to the majors.
Oddly enough, I'll give you my full history of how it all kind of boiled down for me. I was not interested in baseball at all. I had no interest in playing it. I didn't watch it. And then I was in like maybe 9th grade, I think it was, maybe 10th grade. And my buddies who played was like, hey, we're short a player today. We need somebody. Can you come play? And it was I honestly, I look back at it and I can't believe how fast it all happened when I started to play. I 9th, 10th grade, by grade 11, I was on the junior national team, grade 12, junior national team, first year in university, junior national team. That summer, turned pro. 3 years later, I'm in the big leagues. It was just like, what is going on? Like it was incredible. And in that area, while I was in the minor leagues, my second year, I blew up my elbow, and I thought, I didn't have the very best rookie season in rookie ball. I was actually playing in Medicine Hat at the time, and I loved it out there. Obviously, close to home. I'm from Kelowna, BC, but yeah, it was weird how quick it happened. And then I blew out my elbow the next year. Didn't have surgery. Just I could throw flat ground, no problem, no pain. But as soon as I got on the mound, it felt like somebody had a knife in my elbow, and I missed the entire year. I got 4 starts, and that was it. And then came back the following spring, and I got to tell you that story too, because I was expecting to get sent home. I really, truly was. I couldn't do anything during spring training except for like the last 2 weeks. And I ended up getting on the mound, throwing without pain, made the club, went to Myrtle Beach. We proceeded to have the worst record in professional baseball in the first month of the season. We were 4-21. And we went on the road, and we were I'll never forget this. We were in Columbus, Georgia. And we had some internal issues, I guess you might want to call them. You know what it's like in a clubhouse when things start to go a little sideways, guys get a little angry at each other. And next thing you know, there's a table being turned over and somebody's getting flipped on their back and all hell's breaking loose. So we have this massive internal brawl with all our players. And I'm not kidding you. It was 22 guys fighting in a clubhouse, and it was craziness. Pat Gillick, Gordash, Mel Queen, Bobby Maddock, who was a farm director at the time, all flew into Georgia. Next thing you know, they release like 4 players, send 4 players away, and send 2 guys down. And we get a whole bunch of new crew in. We ended up turning it around, going from the worst record in professional baseball to winning. Like at that time, the season was split into 2 halves. You had a first half and a second half. And if you won the first half, you had to play into the playoffs to get into the finals. But if you won both halves, you just went directly to the finals. And we ended up winning the entire thing. It was the most amazing season I've ever been part of in baseball. It was remarkable to go from chaos to a unity. To this day, there's still guys on that team that I still talk to.
And what year is this?
That was in 93? No, 92. 92, sorry.
So what level was that?
That was it was low A. It was South Atlantic League. Yeah, it was crazy. It was unbelievable. Like, guys typically get along in a clubhouse famously, right?
Nah, I don't know. I don't know. When you're winning, you can have the biggest mismatch anything, and winning solves all problems. You start losing, and the problems come out of the woodworks. That's what you're talking about.
Yeah, 100%. And that's exactly what everything just boiled to the surface that one day in Georgia, and it was terrible. I remember the next day, our manager at the time was Doug Alt, and God rest his soul. He unfortunately took his life a few years later. But yeah, I remember the next day that our pitching coach, who was Darren Balsley, who's been the pitching coach for the Padres for I don't even know how long, forever. We're doing wall sits for minutes on end, not just one, but like 50 of them. It was the worst punishment I've ever gone through in sports, but I tell you, it unified us, and it was like everybody had everybody's back after that. It was great. What an experience.
All I can think of is Bull Durham. You lollygaggers. Put them in the shower. Scare them. They're kids. How much, going back to your young years, your grade 9, you're saying, when you first start throwing, you're telling me your buddies must have hated you, right? Like, how is it that were you playing hockey, or were you just sitting there? Like, what were you doing at this point?
I was doing my high school sport. I was actually a really good soccer player at the time.
Okay.
Playing on the select teams and that sort of stuff, and traveling around and doing that, and playing your high school sports, your volleyball, your basketball, that kind of stuff, and just keeping active that way. I played hockey a little bit, but I only played for like maybe 2 years. And then the 80s hit and the recession came, and my dad was a small business owner, and that was really hard for him. So we all had to make sacrifices, and hockey was my sacrifice. And I feel lucky that I've been able to go back and play, just pick up hockey and have some fun doing it. And I realized how much I miss the sport. It's not like I can go play old timers baseball right now. I can barely play catch with my kids.
Do they have old timers baseball?
Oh yeah, there's some men's leagues. I get asked all the time, "Hey, can you throw for us today?" I'm like, no, just can't do it. I can give you 10 pitches, and that'll be my warm up. And then what do I do to get in the game?
And that's, us hockey players always talk about it, right? Like, we have especially in Saskatchewan, you have like such a cool little way to keep playing. And I'm not sitting here saying, you can play until you're 60. Well, actually, I am saying that, because even the old timers here in Lloyd, the Never Sweats, they got guys who've played up until their 80s. And now that's just commercial league. That's just, you're going out, no hitting, nothing like that. But I mean, there's ways to continue to play the sport you love up until you can't essentially tie your skates, right? Like that's kind of what it is. There's not many sports that are like that.
No, there isn't. And that's unfortunate. I mean, baseball is the type of game, it's a young man's game. Let's face it. Most careers are done by the time you're 30. Who thinks you're old at 30?
No one. Well, at 18, you think they're old. But when you hit 30, you go, why did I ever think this was old? There's
it's a game that has to be played every day for your body to adapt properly. There's just no way that a hockey player or a basketball player or football player can play it every day. There's just way too physical. Baseball, on the other hand, is an explosive sport. A lot of downtime, but you got to be able to move quick when it happens. And as you get older, losing a step takes a whole new meaning, doesn't it?
It certainly does. You bring up something let me give you my baseball career in a nutshell. I was a bench warmer. I got to be a DH for a little stint. It didn't last very long. I was a hell of a lot better hockey player than I ever was baseball. The wife still teases me about it. 162 games, man, is a lot. You're saying that needs to happen?
It absolutely does, for sure. And really, in reality, it's a lot more than 162. Add another 20 or 30 games in spring training, plus playoffs. You're closer to 200 days on the field. And yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, it wears you down, and you're tired. You're more mentally tired than you are physically tired. The grind of the season is. I don't know of anything like it, to be honest. I mean, I've been in business for myself for 15 years now, and I don't think I've ever felt like I do at the end of August or September, at the end of a season, going home and like, holy moly, you're like, oh, my brain can't even function anymore. It's just, I need time off to just clear my thoughts and get back on the right page. And don't get me wrong, business has its problems too, but when it's performance-based like sport is, there's no opportunity to correct that in sport. You've got to continually perform. And that just grinds on you on a daily basis. Professional sports to me is like a meat grinder. As soon as your number comes up, it's over. There's no way to hold on to it. You're just put through the grinder. The next guy's pushing you out. Why are they going to pay you a couple $1 million when they can have a rookie making $400,000 or $500,000 doing the same thing? That's just the way sport is.
Yeah, numbers game.
Yeah, absolutely. And now it's even worse, I think, because of the matrices that they compare everybody to. Your spin rates, your exit velos, your first to third times, all that stuff is starting to add up, and they can show where you're losing losing ground in certain areas. And age, how do you compete with age? You can't. The young guy coming in has got a better arm, he's more alive, he's more energetic, doesn't have the experience, and sometimes that doesn't matter when it comes down to paychecks.
So do you hate Moneyball or do you enjoy Moneyball?
I don't. I don't like the new brand of baseball at all. I think it is to me, baseball's a game where the manager has to have a really good understanding of his players and their capabilities. The hunch that managers would play by bringing hitters in or bringing pitchers in certain situations. I think that is just gone. Now it's all, your lineup is handed to you. Here are the guys, here's the matchups we're going to go with. These 3 guys off the bench, these 2 guys out of the pen, and our closer. That's it. Go get them. And, hopefully the game works out the way the matrices say it's supposed to work out. But, when it comes down to it's 100% stat driven. To me, the endearing part of the game is gone. The old timer off the bench, the guy that's, 37 years old and he's a DH, and, all the thing he can do is hit home runs or that type of thing. Everybody wants to see that guy succeed, but now it's a 22-year-old rookie coming off the bench looking to slap the ball into the shift. You know what I mean? Like it's a totally different mindset. It's a totally different way of playing the game.
It's fun to have a guy on. You speak very well. I must say that you probably I feel like you must have done some broadcasting or something at some point.
I have. I've done a bit for Sportsnet and the Score at the time. But yeah, I did some work on TV for sure.
Did you not want to keep with it?
I do. I really did, but it's hard. I've got 5 kids, and we travel. My 3 oldest boys. Well, I've got 3 boys and twin girls, and my oldest 2 boys played baseball together in London, which was like a 2.5-hour drive. So I drive them 3 times or 4 times a week down there to go practice and play. So it was tough to kind of continue that. And now I'm coaching my youngest son, who's in 17U baseball and travel baseball. And we go all over the place. I mean, we're in the States for 3 or 4 times in the year. And I
gotta know, the twin girls, were they the finals? Were they your last 2? You were shooting for a 4th, and you got the dreaded deuce.
Yep, I got kings over queens, baby. I got a full house.
Oh man, well, I got the listeners get probably tired of me talking about it, but I got 3 kids. The oldest is closing in on 5, so we're going to be this year. Everybody will move up here. We'll have 5, 4, and closing in on 2. So it's a busy household. And all I thought when we were having our third is just don't be twins. Just don't be twins. Just don't be twins. And what you're
I feel lucky. I feel lucky. On my dad's side of the family, there's quadruplets, triplets, and twins. And I got lucky with only one set. That's for sure. But when my girls were born, we had 5 kids under 5, and I was going to the Olympics in 2004. How do you think my wife felt during that time? Yeah, babe, listen, I'm packing up. I'm heading to Greece. I'll see you in about a month. All right. Good luck with the kids, and don't forget to mow the lawn. That happened. That's a true story. I wish I had a picture of her, because CBC did a special report on her, and she's out there riding on the ride-a-mower with the kids and on those backpack things, one on the front, one on the back, one between her legs. It was great. It was the funniest thing I'd ever seen.
You know, I've had a guy who listens to the podcast quite a bit suggest that I should interview a couple of the pro wives, like the wives of the pro players, because they probably have better stories than the guys anyways, because they're the ones that are just like, well, I just got traded to Seattle. Guess we're moving there. Oh, okay, right? Like, and now you're saying it, I'm going to the Olympics. Like, what's she really gonna say though? Well,
Yeah.
You can't say no to that.
No, absolutely not. You know, and for when it happened in my career, I was 36 years old when I was going to the Olympics. I'm like, I had an opportunity in '88 before I turned pro, but I don't know what happened there. Something messed up happened, and I ended up not being able to go, and I ended up going to Australia for the World Junior Championships instead, which was a nice trade-off. Don't get me wrong, but it sure would have been nice to get the Olympics out of the way before I had a professional career.
What was the Olympics?
Yeah,
what was the Olympics like? Yeah.
The Olympics, how can I even put this? I'm glad that I had the experience that I had through professional baseball before I went there, because the media, the environment, the Olympic Village, the athletes village, I mean, it was chaos. It was just mayhem every single waking minute. It was just nonstop action. And, dealing with media is one thing, but when you never had play at a set time. It was, like 2 p.m. or noon or 4, 7, there was no set schedule. So it was just, and I think back to when we were playing for the bronze medal the night before, we'd lost to Cuba, an absolute heartbreaker. It broke my heart. And I've never been part of a team where you had 25 guys that just sat on the bench for an hour after the game and then another hour on the bus. And, the game finished at like 10:30. We weren't getting back to the Olympic Village till like 2 a.m. Then we have to get up at 7 to play a 9 o'clock bronze medal game the next morning. You can imagine the energy level in that game and why we lost. I mean, it was obvious, we didn't really stand a chance. We had nothing going in there. We left it all on the field against Cuba. So, but it was a remarkable experience. And I wish that everybody in sport could have the opportunity to go and do the Olympic events and just, or even go to the Olympics and see what it's all about. It truly is underappreciated in my mind. It not only by fans, but by those who participate. I didn't enjoy it as much as I would have if I had had some previous experience and known that, okay, now I can take a second shot at this and take in all the things that needed to be done and really soak it all in. It took me years after to realize just how fun that was and what kind of excitement level it was. It was an unbelievable experience. I loved it.
Well, then I got to follow that up with, anytime I never got to wear a Canadian jersey. I'm sure like in my book, obviously a hockey guy, Stanley Cup, I'm sure for you, World Series, right? Those things are awfully high. But what was it like putting on the Canadian uniform?
There's a million cliches that you can say about it, but we as Canadians, we have a very unique sense of pride, in my opinion. We are not boisterous about it, but don't mess with the flag, don't mess with the beaver, and God, don't talk bad about the moose. Like listen, putting it on is it's a sense of glory. It's an awakening of your soul, because you are one of the best in the country, and to be able to put a jersey on that reflects that, the sense of pride is enormous. It is just truly enormous.
Yeah, that's cool. I like how you phrase that. There is a lot of pride in the Maple Leaf. You know what? I was. This is a side note. I'm a history guy. I graduated with a degree in history, and it's funny. I listened to you on a different show talk about, lots of guys go to school and then they don't use the degree they got. And I started laughing. I'm like, well, that's me in a nutshell, right? I got a degree in history and I work in the oil field now. Now I'm doing podcasts. But I learned off of, I do some interviews for the Lloydminster Archives. So the community pillars of Lloyd, right, that are in their, essentially 65 to 95 range. They've seen some things. And one of them was about her father. And her father fought in World War II, and his family had then fought for Canada in World War I. And anyways, they'd fought under the Red Ensign. Did you know anything about that?
No.
So in the wars, we didn't fight under the Canadian Maple Leaf. That was something that was brought in. Yeah. And so we got talking about this, and I was like, you talk about the unique pride we have of putting on that, the leaf, the Canadian flag, the everything that is so that's all I know. And that isn't what we fought under back in the day. And it blew me away.
That is, honestly, I'm having a hard time digesting that. I just can't even imagine that we wouldn't have the Maple Leaf sewn to our uniform in some shape, way, or form. Like, that is just... That's crazy.
Yeah, the red ensign. It's a red flag, all red, with the British flag a little bit in the top, and then in the bottom right corner was like a crest. And I saw it, and I'm like, I don't even recognize this. Like, I mean, you kind of understand, but at the same time, I just always assumed, it's funny how time goes on, and now you think when I get guys to talk about the jersey and putting it on and what it means to them, how time just marches on, and you can see and hear what putting the Maple Leaf means to us. Well, my dad talks about that. Once I heard the Red Ensign story, he remembers as a kid guys being very upset about it, and you can imagine.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that is shocking to me. Really, I will look that up and I will read into that. I love history too, and particularly World War I and II stuff. I find it remarkably just intriguing. The warfare that happened back then and the sacrifices that these people made for us today. It's just, we can't forget that stuff. And I sadly, it is slowly weaning out of our society, but our freedom came at an extremely high cost, and those poor souls, they gave it to us.
Yeah, they paid the highest price, didn't they?
They sure did.
Now, switching back to baseball, I was talking to a buddy of mine today, and once he put it on me onto the topic, I can't get away from it now, because I'm like, oh man, I had no idea, because all I ever hear about, and what I'm talking about, is pay. In baseball, when you compare it to other major sports, like I think of guys like Mike Trout, right? Making 37 mil, and you're going like, holy Dinah, wouldn't that be nice, right? Like you think, what's Connor McDavid making? 12.5, right? Like it doesn't even compare. But what he got me onto was the minor leagues in baseball and how little money is made there. Now, you're a guy who spent some time in the minors. What was it like back then for pay and making a living playing minor league baseball?
Well, up until I think it was maybe 2 years ago, the wages haven't changed in 30 years. I made $850 a month, my first year in pro ball. I made $1,200 my second year, $2,500 my third year, and then when I got put on the roster, I made $30,000 a year. So you can imagine how far $850 goes. You're eating a lot of peanut butter and jelly, bananas, a lot of bread, bologna. I mean, you're just trying to stretch every penny as far as you go. I think a lot of it, as callous as it may seem, I think it's a pretty good design, because it sorts those people out that love the game as opposed to those who are just playing it for the paycheck. Now, don't get me wrong. There are guys that are at the big league level that don't like baseball. They just like the paycheck and they're really good at what they do, and that's fine. But they at one point really, really loved the game, and playing in the minor leagues and the endless bus trips and the rules have changed along the way. Anything over 500 miles, now you got to fly. Back when I played, we bused from Medicine Hat to Salt Lake City, Utah to play games. Like, let me tell you, you get off that bus ride, you want to talk about not having legs? Oh, man. you feel like you got rubber bands down there. It's terrible. It's a horrible experience, but that's what gave you it gave you the grind. It gave you the salt to continue to play. It was building character as far as I was concerned, and flying is great and charters are amazing, but you got to love the game. If you don't love the game, it's going to show so fast. And when it comes down to money, yeah, money is a beautiful thing. It makes the world go around. It pays your bills. It puts food on your table, keeps your, everything, all the good stuff, right? But the amount of money, it doesn't matter. Honestly, these guys do not care. They just want what's fair in the market. If that's $37 million a year, that's $37 million a year. The owners wouldn't pay it if they didn't have it.
I am really enjoying this because I expected you to go, yeah, the minor leagues are, underfunded. They need to be a little bit more. We were eating, we didn't have much. We had bologna and whatever. Instead, you kind of flipped that on its head. I guess what I was surprised about, the Mike Trout, you're absolutely right. The owner's going to pay whatever they're going to pay. But if you're playing A ball and making, enough to buy a bologna sandwich, you wonder, is that enough? But what you're saying is it absolutely is enough because it separates the wheat from the chaff, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I think you should have live certainly above the poverty line being a professional athlete. That is without saying. But at the end of the day, if it's too tough for you because you can't live on your paycheck, well, how did you get to where you are now? If mom and dad at some point contributed a lot of money to you to get to where you wanted to be, that picking up a phone going, Mom, Dad, hey, need a little money this month. I got to get some food in my tummy, let's shoot me $100. Don't think I didn't do that. I called my mom and dad weekly. Yeah, so paycheck's gone. What do we do now?
Hey, Mom, you mind sending a loaf of bread? I could use one of those.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they look after you now a lot better. There's meals and that sort of stuff. You're looked after a lot better because the performance side of baseball has really, really stepped up to the plate as far as, no pun intended, but looking after their players and really making sure that the athletes are the best that they can be at any given time.
But that's all professional sports now. You just watching young kids in hockey, it's like that was not us. And I'm not an old guy by any stretch of the imagination. I'm like, what the heck is going on here? Like the specialization and the keying in on nutrition at a super young age and like all the extras they do in training. We had like none of that. And I don't know, I assume we would have all gravitated to if it was there, but it's almost impressive to watch kids now, like how much extra stuff they can do to prepare for their respective sport.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's remarkable when you put, it's the old adage, good things in, good things come out, right? Like if you eat like crap, you're going to play like crap. You're going to feel like crap. But if you eat well, you're going to perform well.
And yet we all know that one guy who could eat cheeseburgers, drink Cokes, and go out and hit like a rock star, pitch like a rock star. I assume you got one of those guys.
Oh, they're everywhere. David Wells was one of those guys. Remember Boomer?
Yeah, I do.
He was one of those guys, man. You couldn't put a lean sandwich in his mouth because he'd throw it back up. But you give him a Big Mac and he'd go throw 9 innings scoreless for you. It's just one of those guys. You just bad body, but just go ahead and just deal. Like there's freaks out there all over the place. Not everybody's got the 3% body fat and built like a Greek god. Some of them look like they should, dad bodies at 25,
That's what's awesome about MLB pitchers is that is 100% true. You can just have a big juggernaut, but man, if he can throw the ball, what's it matter?
Doesn't matter. Get people out. That's all they care about. You don't have to look good out there. Just do your job well.
Now, I think in my research of you, you were undrafted, but I think if I remember correctly, at the time Canadians couldn't be taken in the MLB draft. Am I remembering that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. It actually happened. The draft came into Canada, I think, in 1991, and I signed in 89. So it was a couple of years after.
So what did you do then? Right? If you couldn't be taken in the draft, what were your options?
Well, it's done a lot different than it is today. You go to school, you get noticed by universities, you go through that system. Signing was a lot more, the scouting setup was a lot different than it is now. Bird dog scouts, I think, played a bigger part in what they do today, because they could be around you more often, see you, provide the reports that whatever organization was looking at you, provide, in-time reports, as opposed to, these guys fly out. Now everything's done on Wi-Fi. You can send the video. They know everything about you before you know it about yourself. So, but the exposure level, the national team obviously helped. I went to a program after I graduated high school called the National Baseball Institute in Vancouver, which is like a proving ground for the national team and for the Bluejays. They helped fund it. So it was a great opportunity from that perspective, and one that I'm glad that I took. I had opportunities in the US, but I couldn't afford to go to the States and go to a Big Ten school or Pac-10. It just wasn't in the cards for me. It wasn't something that I could afford. So I had to find alternate ways to get to my end goal. And I think that helped a lot in who I became as a player, that nothing was easy for me. Sure, the game came easy to me, but getting through the ranks was not easy.
I'm going to ask a dumb question, because I thought if you played Division I baseball, you got a scholarship.
No, not necessarily true. The way the NCAA is set up now, they only have so much money, and they can only give away, I think it's 2.7 full scholarships. So that's
2.7?
2.7, as odd as that. It's just a weird number, right? It's weird, but it all comes down to the amount of money that the school has that they can allocate to scholarships that don't infringe on the NCAA rules. It's hard. Trust me, it's not easy. Most people go to school, get their scholarship, might be a full scholarship, but they won't have room and board or meals or books paid for. Sure, you can go to school, but you got to pay for all the other stuff. So that would be a full scholarship. That would be a partial full scholarship, but a true full scholarship is you have no out-of-pocket costs, and those are very rare.
I did not know that. So I played Division III hockey, and we all got partial scholarships, which means I fully understand the paying out of pocket for part of your schooling. Heck, I did it. But what I thought I understood about Division I was it was full ride scholarships. And obviously I'm mistaken on that.
Yeah, and that's a common misconception for sure. Everybody wants, being a coach now and being directly involved with kids moving on to the next level, which is college baseball and in some cases professional, but most of them end up going to colleges or JUCOs and that kind of stuff. And I find from a Canadian perspective, unless you're an unbelievable baseball player, going to a big school is going to be a hindrance to you. One, for a couple reasons. One being is the limited number of reps we get as Canadians. How do you compete against a guy in Texas that played 70 games during the summer league, and then his high school was another 40 games, so he's 110, 120 games into his year, and we're playing 45 to 50 games, and on a busy year we'll be 60 or 70 games. Between tournaments and traveling and all that sort of stuff. So how do you compete against that? It's really tough. So going to a big school, you're not going to get to play right away. You're going to have to sit on the bench. You're going to redshirt unless you're an unbelievable stud. So the organization that I'm part of, we try to send the kids to schools that they're going to get to play. You're not going to have any downtime. You're going to learn the game on the field instead of watching it on the bench and charting and doing all the things that those other guys may have to do. It's hard. It's hard. Everybody wants to go to a big school, but the reality is it's not your best fit. You may be ability-wise, you may be able to compete there, but do you want to sacrifice a year of your eligibility to sit on the bench, or have minimal exposure and your only reps are during practice and batting practice and inter-squad games? Like that's just no way to develop. It doesn't matter whether you're a pitcher or a hitter. That's a bad way to develop. Baseball's a game of repetition. The more you play it, the better you get. It sounds simple, but it's the truth. You've got to go out, you've got to perform, and you got to do it under game-like conditions or in game conditions. I mean, you know what it's like when you play an inter-squad game. Sure, it's fun and it's enjoyable, but that little bit of intensity, that when it matters, when I got to step on somebody's throat or I got to knock somebody on their ass, I can't do that to my own teammate. But in a game, watch out. I'm taking names. If your number comes up and I got to hit you, sorry about your luck, pal. You're getting one.
And there is something to be said about, it's probably across all sports, Paul, is if you're going to play, you'd rather be playing. Well, I mean, even look at majors versus putting them in the minor leagues, right? If you're going to sit on the bench and you're a rookie, wouldn't you rather have your rookies starting every game, sitting in the minors, instead of, they're getting the exposure to the show, so to speak. But if they're not playing, what's better for their development? I think that's an argument, as an Oilers fan, we've had that argument here an awful lot because we rush every single prospect we have until they brought in Ken Holland, and that has been slowed down. And as a fan, you want to see all these young kids come in. You do, because, patience is a tough thing, right? Like, you want to rush things. You want to see guys come through. You want to see the new model, so to speak, the new car come out and show what it can do. But you want, if you can have the patience, you want long-term success, which means you want the best for the kids so that when they do eventually get there, it's what you're saying. You want them to be able to walk in and play. And so
Exactly.
putting kids in the right spot for themselves developmentally wise, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, the bad part about not being rushed to the next level, or the bad part about being rushed to the next level, is that, are you going to be ready to step in when it matters? And it's hard for a veteran player to look at a rookie and go, this guy's taking my job. He doesn't have the seasoning. He doesn't understand the daily grind that happens here. I get it. I mean, it's a tough situation for sure. And, you have such a limited time frame in a professional career, or even any sport career, high school till you're 30 years old. If you get past 30 years old, you're already making enough money. You don't have to worry about doing anything after sport unless you do something silly and blow it all.
Evander Kane.
Yeah, 26 mil, I heard, huh?
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a tough pill to swallow. But that you have such a short window. So the flip side is, well, let's rush him up there, get him all the necessary experience that he needs within the clubhouse and dealing with veteran players and learning the ups and downs and the bumps and the daily grinds and that sort of stuff, and learning it at the highest level. Sure, that makes sense. But again, then I revert back to the development side of it. Can he not develop those same kind of instincts in the minor leagues or in lower hockey or whatever the situation may be, having learning those things through trials and tribulations? To me, the more important thing is to understand failure as an athlete, how hard it is to deal with. You've had success your entire life in sports. Now you get mixed in with guys that are
the same level
or better.
That's right.
And how do you deal with adversity? And to me, I saw a lot of guys going through the minor leagues, making my way up, that clearly had a lot more talent, but they didn't have it here. They just couldn't deal with failure. So they were gone. They couldn't handle it. And if you can't deal with failure, baseball is a game of failure. Let's face it. Hall of Famers fail 70% of the time. Like, where else in the world can you get by and make money and fail 70% of the time? There's just nothing like it.
Yeah, non-existent, I think.
I think it'd be the accurate term, yes.
You know, in my current job, success is defined by 99% pass, like good.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at. So yeah, 70. Can you imagine being able to fail 70% of the time? Geez, never have to
Yeah.
show up.
Exactly. Yeah. And 99 is what's expected of you, right? Like it's there's no middle ground. It's either 99 or not at all. You can go home and we'll get the next guy in.
Can you teach in between the years?
I try my best. I think that's my best skill as a coach is to help develop the pitching side of baseball. Sure, there's some mechanical things that we all need to understand and, basic principles of pitching, but the idea of pitching and understanding and reading hitters, I think is where I excel at. I really stress on my players, pitch selection, understanding hitters, executing the pitches. You can't go back and change anything. So let's not worry about the pitch that you didn't make. Let's worry about the pitch, this moment right now. And keeping the game simple. I mean, it's just, if I wish I had somebody that would have told me that when I was coming up, because I have some spice in my blood. I'm not gonna lie, I get a little fiery. And it's hard to accept failures, even though they may not be your own. And you make the right pitch and you throw it in the right spot and you still give up a home run. Sometimes you just got to tip your hat and educating a kid that doesn't understand that. But I threw the pitch in the right spot and he still hit it out. What did I do wrong? You didn't do anything wrong. He did everything right. That's just part of the game. And understanding that and accepting that is, I did my job. I just got beat. Sometimes you get beat. It doesn't matter what you're doing. You just get beat. And if you can't deal with that failure, then you got to really reassess your own self and say, this is not for me, or this is something that I have to overcome and understand it better so that the next time this situation comes up, that it happens to me, I just ask for another baseball and carry on like it never happened.
That's the failure part of that and dealing with it. I mean, it's pretty easy to see from a guy who's just a fan now watching, right? Like, there's very few guys who weren't very talented at the lower levels that make it to the next level, right? Like, that's pretty much the formula for it. You got to be the best in order to keep moving up. But eventually, like you say, you hit this level where everybody's good, or if not better, which means you're going to start to feel more failure, which you probably haven't felt a lot all the way up. Right.
Yeah, it's 100% true. And the higher you go, the more failure happens. And it's learning to accept it, but not let it define you, help you learn from it so that you can move forward from it. And that to me is, you can have the best stuff in the world as a pitcher, but if you can't control your emotions while you're on the mound and put all of that beside you and say, I've got one job to do right now. I have to execute this pitch at this moment. And regardless of the outcome, it doesn't matter. My job is to execute pitches. 7 guys behind me make the plays. So let them do their job too, right? And it's hard for kids to understand that, yeah, strikeouts are great, but striking out 14 guys in a game, what did you learn? You didn't learn much. You just had a lot of success. But when you struggle and you're not commanding your pitches and your balls are bouncing all over the place, your defense may not be doing the best job behind you. How do you deal with that? How do you overcome that and continue to be able to succeed? And it's hard for kids to let that go because they feel like they've done everything that they could. And it's true, they probably have, but it's a team sport. And that, yes, it's done on an individual basis and your success is predicated only by your preparation. Those other guys, you don't think the coach is going over there and going, hey, buddy, keep your nose down, keep your chin down, catch the baseball. It's that simple. Catch, throw, run. What more do we need to explain to you? Just get it done, right? but the understanding that and moving on from it is very difficult for kids. And I find I have a lot of explaining to do when they come into the dugout and go, well, what happened here? And I'd be like, well, and it's a game of inches. Making a good pitch, what you think might be a good pitch, when a hitter sees it, that might not be such a good pitch. They get a better part of the bat on it, or they recognize it, or they get you in a pattern, and you don't see yourself in a pattern of pitch selection and that kind of stuff. Good hitters pick that up. So you've got to learn to stay out of patterns, and that's all part of the development. And things that I really stress on my guys, again, is staying out of patterns and staying. It's a KISS principle, basically. Keep it simple, stupid. Don't make it complicated. It's not a complicated game. Just keep it simple. It's easy to overcome things when it's on a simple level and it's digestible. Smaller bits are easy to chew on than a big mouthful, right?
Yeah, that's very well said. Very well said. Going to your time in Toronto, what was your debut like?
I'm still seeing a psychologist about that, but yeah, I didn't go particularly well.
No. I'll rephrase it then. I talked to you about putting on the Canadian Maple Leaf jersey Olympics. More so than the game result, what was making your debut like?
You know what? I look back at it, and I've looked at it a lot. And my debut was absolutely abominable. It was terrible. It was just shell shocking. It was. I got the first out. I faced Tim Raines, was the first player I'd ever faced in the big leagues. Got him on an easy tap out to Ed Sprague, and then I don't know what happened after that. Honestly, my legs went. I couldn't feel the rubber. I thought it was just weird. It was an explosion of a disaster. I'm like, here I am, Canadian kid, living the dream, making my major league debut in Toronto for my beloved Jays, and I am just shitting the bed. This is not good. This is just horrible. It was a terrible experience, to be honest with you, other than leading up to it. Everything was great until the day I stepped on the mound, and I was like, oh God.
Just hearing you talk about it, I almost forget how interesting of a position pitching is, right? Like it might be equivalent to being a goalie, maybe, just because of being but I don't know. Like you go and if your stuff's on, you're an absolute, you're ace in the hole.
Yeah.
The other 8 guys on the field, you just got the pitcher just throwing the stuff, and when it ain't going right, I mean, everything's on you.
Oh yeah, those are the worst days. So I look at starting pitchers on a 10 start scale. 2 are going to be really good. 2 are going to be really, really bad. And what you do with the other 6 in the middle makes you as a pitcher. And when I say that to kids, and it doesn't matter whether you're in the bullpen or you're a starting pitcher or whatever, you just look at it on outings. What you do with those 6 in the middle really define you as a player. And everybody gets their ass kicked. It doesn't matter who you are. Baseball is going to hand it to you at some point. It's just the way the game is. And learning to accept that is hard. I'm great. I want to be the best. I'm going to be the best. I keep going. And next thing you know, you're looking up at the scoreboard. There's 9 points up there. And you're like, I haven't even gotten an out yet. What's going on? Right? Like it's hard. It's really hard. And you go back and look at tape. I'll give you an example. I was in AAA at the time, and I was starting, and I was dealing. I mean, dealing. And I went into Rochester. We were playing the Orioles, and I threw 35 pitches in the first inning and gave up 8 runs and didn't get an out. And I went back and looked at the film, and I could have sworn that every pitch I threw was where I wanted it, just the result wasn't there. And then I go back and look at, I got taken out of a no-hitter. Okay, in the 9th
You got
inning,
taken out of a no-hitter?
I got taken out. I had a no-hitter in the 9th inning with 2 out, and I would have had my no-hitter, but there was a couple errors, so that didn't happen. But I got taken out of the game, and I went back and looked at the video after, and it was like, how did I get anybody out today? It was terrible. Guys were just missing balls, popping them up, throwing a ball right down the guts, and he would just pop it straight up or pound it into the dirt, and I'd get this wheezy rollover. It was just like, what? It just made no sense to me. And that's the weird part about sport to me, is that there's no explanation for why you had success one day and the very next day you do the exact same stuff and you have completely opposite results. It's weird. It rattles my brain sometimes.
Let's put a pin in the too good, the too bad, the 6. What did you say when you got pulled on a no-hitter?
That did not go well. Again, the spicy blood in me got the better part of me. I'm not going to lie.
You tell me one person that wouldn't have a little spicy blood having a no-hitter going.
Yeah, and oddly enough, it was Doug Alt again, the manager. I was like, oh my gosh, this is not right. So I get pulled out of the game. I go right into the clubhouse, and Doug comes into the clubhouse, and I proceed to lose my crap on him. And he's like, you're at 100 pitches. I'm like, it's a no-hitter. I don't care. 105, 110, 120. Who cares? Does it matter? I've got a no-no going. Well, you had your opportunity for your no-no, but Alex Gonzalez was the shortstop. He kicked the ball, and then our second baseman kicked a routine double play ball in the next play, and then I was out of the game. And oddly enough, let me finish that story. We lost the game. 2-1 on a no-hitter. We ended up getting the no-hitter, but we lost. And we lost on a wild pitch, on a pitch out. Runner at third, guy who's picked, so doing a pitch out, throws it to the screen, and we lose. We're like, oh, come on. Really? I can't make up this stuff. It was crazy. But anyway, back to my losing my mind on Doug. So we have a big argument in the clubhouse, and then we go to the bus, and I'm still a little upset. Obviously we lose the game on a pitch out. It was incredible to watch. And then the players started chirping me, giving me the gears, and I'm already upset. And I don't know what happened, but anyway, it ended up being a great big argument on the bus with everybody. Everybody was supporting me, and everybody was dogging Doug. You shouldn't have done that. We lost the game. You had a no-hitter. It was just one of those things. It was a good time though.
Oh God, that's a story that just keeps on giving.
Yeah. And you know what? The odd part is, I think the baseball gods got pissed off at me because I never threw another. That was the closest I've ever been to a no-hitter. I almost had a perfect game playing in the inter-county league here, but that got broken up. And then the next play I got 27 up, 27 down. Next guy hit a ground ball double play, ended the game. So, but yeah, never got another no-hitter.
Man. Well, okay. That did not see that coming. That's a fantastic story.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
mean, in the wrong way, a fantastic story. I mean, it would have been better if you would have just had the no-hitter, but for him to have a pitch out and that's how they win it, geez. Yeah, how many times has that happened in baseball? Not very often.
I'm going to say once, and I was there. I've never heard of anything like it before. The great thing about baseball is just when you think you've seen it all, it'll surprise you. It'll throw something out. You just go, what? Did I just see? That can't be right. That just can't be right. Whether it's a base running blunder or, throwing behind somebody, throwing to the wrong, you just see stuff all the time that keeps the game intriguing. And no matter how well you know it, it just keeps throwing you curveballs. It's like, yeah, we got you now. We got you looking one way. We're going to give you this one now. So, but that's, I think, what I love best about baseball is it's constantly evolving. It's constantly changing. It's never the same. The grind is mundane, but every day preparing for a game and getting into a game and performing, you just never know what to expect.
How about the Blue Jays winning the World Series? You would have been in the farm system then at the time.
Yep.
Were you around that at all? Or were you guys just watching?
Yeah, actually, I was considered for a couple of the trades in '92 when we got Ricky Henderson. It was between me and a guy named Steve Carsey, and the Jays decided to keep me and traded Steve Carsey for Ricky Henderson. And in the following year, I was in spring training with the big club, and they obviously went on to win the World Series, and I was on the roster, and I was really, really upset that I didn't get a September call up. Just to have the opportunity to sit on the bench for a World Series. And, I remember the reporter coming up to me at the end of the AAA season in Syracuse saying, "Hey, how do you feel about not getting called up?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to quote my mom on this one." And they're like, "What do you mean?" I go, "Well, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all." And I turned around and walked away. And they quoted me in the paper saying that. And the next day, Gord Ash comes up to me and he goes, "You know what? I appreciate you saying that. You deserve it, but we had different plans." And I'm like, "Well, doesn't help me. I'd like to be in the big leagues watching or getting the opportunity to perform at that level and in a World Series. It would have been amazing."
Well, that's good old Bambi for
Yeah.
you. That's
Yeah.
I feel like that's been passed down generations.
Yeah.
What was Seattle like? When I got looking at where you'd been, and then of course I got talking to some of my buddies who are avid baseball fans. We got talking about the Mariners back then, and then we got looking at the names, and I'm like, oh my god, right? Like Griffey in his heyday, Randy
Mhm.
Johnson, like
Alex
Alex Rodriguez.
Yep.
What was going to that team like? What was Seattle like?
I'll tell you, I will never. Have you ever been traded?
No, I can't say I have.
Okay. So it's very, very unique feeling because when I got traded from Toronto to Seattle, it was honestly heartbreaking for me. When Cito told me, I asked everybody, all the coaches, to leave the coaches room because I broke down. I was like a little baby. I was like, I can't believe I've dreamed of this since the day I started playing baseball, and now today you're telling me that I can no longer be part of my dream. I've got to go do it on another team. It was very disheartening. And then it dawned on me, holy shit, we're in last place. I'm going to a first place team. I'm going to get to go to the playoffs. This is going to be incredible. And then I went from this total deflation to, I can't wait to get on the plane to go there. Unfortunately, I got to tell you my story about that. So we were with Toronto. We played 4 games in 3 days. We had a split gate doubleheader because of a rainout in Milwaukee. And if you've ever been to the old Milwaukee Stadium, that is no place for baseball. So we go to Detroit the next, after our 3-day stint in Milwaukee, we go to Detroit, we play that night. And then that night I get traded to Seattle, and we go back to Milwaukee for the exact same thing. Played 8 games in 6 days in Milwaukee, in the worst stadium ever. Oh, it was terrible. But yeah, it was great. I remember walking into the clubhouse in Milwaukee, and the first person to greet me was Junior. And Mike Timlin was traded with me, and it was interesting because I did well against Junior and the Mariners when I played against them. I pitched really well against them, so it was interesting. And he comes up to me and he just like, "Finally, I don't have to face you anymore." I go, "What?" But yeah, it was. I tell you, that team was incredible. When I look back at the players that were there, and I mean, it was incredible. Like, it was home for me in the sense that it was like being back in the Okanagan in the mountains and being on the West Coast and all that. It was fun. And I look back on my time in Seattle with a lot of regret, sadly. I didn't do well there. And I think a lot of that had to do with where I was with my development with the Jays and working under Dan Plesac. Dan, I learned more in the year that I played with Dan with the Jays than I had in my entire career up to that point. He taught me things that I had no idea about. just literally no idea. He was a guy that took me under his wing, and I felt like I was really starting to make a turn. I didn't want to be in the bullpen. My eye was always on being a starter and getting that opportunity. And Dan was filling my mind with these tidbits of information that I had been able to finish at least the year with him. I think would have made a big difference in my career. And going into Seattle, I felt a lot of pressure to perform. They gave up Jose Cruz for me and Mike Timlin. It was going to a first place team, a lot of pressure to win, all those sorts of things. And I put that added pressure on myself I got out of being who I was as a player and got into what I thought they wanted me to be and not who I was. And that really derailed me. And playing for Lou Piniella it was incredible. It was awesome to play for that guy. It was everything that you know of Lou is absolutely true. But what you don't know about him is how hard he is. He's a hard guy. He's I don't have the proverbial doghouse. Well, Lou, I haven't pitched in a week. Do you think I could get some mound time? Oh yeah, sure, we'll get you in there. Well, there's a hard lesson learned. I did that, and I went 14 straight days up in the pen, into games, 14 days in a row. Now out of those 14 days, I only got into maybe like 6 games, but I was on the mound every single day for 14 days. It was horrible. And I'll never forget this. We were in Oakland, and I went to the pitching coach and I said, listen, I've learned my mistake. How do I ask for time off? He goes, what? Now you want time off? I go, yeah, because I can't even brush my teeth right now. I can't even move my arm. And he's like, well, you're just going to have to wear this. When Lou says you're done, you're done. And I said, oh, okay. So that night, I told my pitching coach, you got to tell Lou, if he's going to get me up just to get me hot and not get me in the game, I don't want to be in the game. I just get me hot and get me in the game because I have no bullets left to fire. This is it. This is my last day. And then I will go into Lou's office and I will ask for time off. And I don't care if that's an entire month because I might need surgery in a week. You know what I mean? So I come in and I face Jason Giambi, and I'm actually feeling pretty good. I'm like, oh, the adrenaline kicked in. I'm starting to feel pretty good. All right, this is great. I look up at the radar gun after I threw what I thought was my best fastball, and it was 84. I went from like 92, 93 to 84 was my best fastball. I was like, oh, this is not. So anyway, ended up getting Jason Giambi out and I see him under the tunnel after the game, and he goes, when did you start throwing changeups? I'm like, buddy, those are my heaters. He's like, come on. I go, I'll tell you the whole story another time, but yeah, those are fastballs. And he was swinging and whipping like he was 10 feet in front of him. It was so funny. I was like, I think I might be on to something here. I might start losing some miles an hour and start getting some more outs.
A message was sent, though.
Oh, the message was clear. Yeah, I'll tell you when you can pitch, and I'll tell you when you can have rest. And that's how it went for the next year. I hardly even spoke to Lou from the end of that outing after in Oakland till the following year. Like it was, hey Lou, how you doing? Everything's great. Yeah, you feel good. Can you pitch tonight? Sure. Yep, no problem. And that was about it.
Can we go back to Dan Plesac? You said he gave you tidbits, and I just took from what you were talking about is that he filled you up with confidence, and he was building you up. What was he talking about? What were the little things he was showing you?
So one thing you got to understand about Dan is I saw him 2-3 years ago in a spring training, and he was doing a game for Major League Baseball and whatever else, because he's on the Major League Baseball network now. And that guy can remember pitches that he threw to people 35, 40 years ago. Like that's the kind of brain that's in that guy's head. Like he just has remarkable recall. And so we would sit in the bullpen and we would discuss, the first couple of innings was always, we were joking around and having a good time, getting into the flow of the game and doing that sort of stuff. But come the fourth inning, it was a switch turned on. I know what I need to do in order to get ready for my outing. And I don't know when that'll be. It could be the 6th, it could be the 7th, it could be the 9th. I don't know. So I need to start to understand what it took to prepare to get into situations, understanding lineups and how they're going to roll over with the number of outs and where, your opportunity might be to come in and get the lefty out. Dan had that down to a science. It was remarkable. It was, I'm going to get whoever, player XYZ in the 7th inning with probably 2 outs. And it'd be like, are you kidding me right now? That's you're calling? It sure as hell. It would happen. And he'd be like, and then he'd try to go back and he'd try to explain how he got to that point where he understood how the lineups would roll over, the number of outs, how the manager is going to do if the games continued in the same situation, whether the score was 1-0 or 7-0. He knew when he was going to pitch, and he tried to. It was very hard to understand, and a lot of guys that I played with had no clue of it, and I tried to continue to learn that. So we would talk. Then we'd go down and we'd talk about hitters. How we want to address this guy. How are we going to try to get him out? Because at the end of the day, before every series, you have a pitchers meeting, and you go through the lineups. These guys are your everyday players. Here's your top 11 guys that are going to be in the game no matter what. Here's the 2 other guys that are off the bench. We're not really worried about them. Who are we not going to let beat us? Or are we going to pitch around, or are we going to pitch to when the opportunity is right? So Dan's recall of getting guys out and how he got them out, not just yesterday or a week, but literally years ago. I threw him a 3-2 slider. I had a runner on third. It was a 1-run game, and I threw him a slider, and it worked well. Try that, and be like, okay. So, there's something to be said for my stuff. Although Dan and I virtually had identical stuff, velocity wise, we threw the same pitches. Our stuff came out differently. I had late life. He had a heavy ball. His slider was short and shallow, where mine was it had more depth to it. But the velocities were all the same. So he would pick my brain at how I would approach a hitter given a situation. And then he would either agree with it, or he would say, this is where I think you could improve on that. And that really, at the end of the day, that constant back and forth, that constant feedback with somebody that did the same job as you, to share that information and know that I'm going to run with it and I'm going to be successful with it. I think Dan took a lot of pride in that, giving me that information and it's seeing me blossom doing that. Because before I left Toronto, I was, when I got traded to Seattle, I was pitching very, very well. And it was, I'm convinced it was due to Dan.
You make me realize how much mental, and I've known this for a long time. I guess I just never really think about it. But listening to you talk, I go, man, there's a lot of the mental side of the baseball game, right? Like there's absolutely the ability, but the mental component is huge. And when you say he could pick out who you're going to face and everything, my brain immediately goes, well, he's probably building scenarios. And in scenarios, it's a numbers game. And you're a lefty. So now you have certain scenarios where you would probably fit right into it. And that's going to key on a couple guys. And so to me, that really makes a lot of sense. And it's cool that how you guys interact and like built kind of an approach to how you were going to face these guys off of his experience and what worked, but understood you had similar stuff, but you didn't have similar stuff, and see how it was going to play out. I could see how that'd be very good to have a sounding board and a knowledgeable sounding board.
It was like the master and the apprentice. That's what it was. That's the feeling that I had. That I don't know if you've ever had a personal experience where somebody's took you under their wing, and showed you what it was like to do things differently, but it made it easier for you. You had a predetermined way of doing something, and then somebody else shows you a different way, and now you've got two ways to skin this cat, and you're able to go, well, now I can pick and choose. I have more tools at my disposal to be able to make an adjustment, to make a change, to read a hitter, to understand the situation better. All those little things that play into your pitch selection. Sometimes it's better to be, let's turn the brain off and just go reactive. But that's not the best solution for everyday success in baseball. You got to have a plan. The old saying is, even a horseshit plan's better than no plan at all. And it is absolutely the truth in baseball. And in trying to, if you go into a game and you don't have an idea what you're going to do, you're not going to be in there for long. You're going to get exposed. It's that simple. You got to know what you got to do. And that's what separates, aside from being the consistency that a big league player possesses, it's that understanding of the nuances of the game that can really elevate you or sink you at the same time.
When you talk master and apprentice, I immediately think mentor, right? Like you're talking about somebody who's, whether it's 10 years or 20 years or 30 years ahead of you because they've already been through what you've been through and they can share that experience and help guide you. You still got to do the work. You still got to put the pitches where they need to go, or you still got to, make it happen, but they can give you the experience and I understand what you're saying. And if you can find those people, that can be a very powerful thing. You want to surround yourself with really good people that have the best for you and challenge your thoughts, but to have it one so specific to you, I guess in my brain, when it comes to baseball and it comes to a pitching coach and it comes to a guy who's going to help the pitchers, I just assumed you would find that on different teams as well. But then again, that's taking into account that each individual is different. So when you go to Seattle, maybe you don't have that same guy who has your best whatever, right? That's kind of what you're saying.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it was. Like when I went to Seattle, I had Norm Charlton there, one of the nasty boys from the days of the Cincinnati Reds. Well, he had a vastly different approach to pitching than me. One so much that I couldn't relate to his approach. What he was trying to tell me to do didn't fit into my game. He was a grunt and farting guy. The harder I work, the harder I throw. And that was not how I approached baseball. Baseball to me was, I needed to be relaxed. I was at my best when I was most relaxed and able to be the most athletic being that I could be. And he was the exact opposite. Let me all get wound up on caffeine and craziness, and let me go out there and try to, throw through the catcher. That was his approach, which is literally completely opposite of me. And that Dan had that same approach that I had. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to be relaxed because 1, I trust my stuff. 2, I have a plan. And 3, I know that if I execute my pitches, I'm going to get you out, or you're going to get yourself out. So let's go, and Norm, on the other hand, was, I'm going to just bury it down your throat. I'm going to intimidate you. I'm going to knock you down. I'm going to dust you off. And then I'm going to knock you down one more time just because I can. That wasn't the way I went about baseball. I took a lot of the things that Norm tried to teach me from the aggressive perspective, because that does apply. It certainly is true. Intimidation is just a way of sport, but it wasn't something that I flourished on. I knew when I had to knock somebody down because they were too comfortable in the box. That was fine. I already knew that. But having the approach that I'm going to throw 3 fastballs at your neck, and then I'm going to try to throw 3 more fastballs down and away to get you out. Well, it's full count. If I miss one more time, what have I done? I've dug a big hole. I didn't trust myself doing that. I wanted to be able to get ahead early and put you away as quickly as I could.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear different guys on just how they were influenced in their career, right? Because you probably wonder, and now you have me wondering, geez, you wonder if you don't get traded to Seattle, what happens? Although you don't go to the top team and you stay on the bottom side of the league, maybe your career, not that it was bad by any stretch, I'm not trying to say that, but maybe all of a sudden it blossoms and you become, you start to become the master, so to speak, to use your words.
Right, exactly. And I think about that quite regularly. I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't regret my career at any level. I don't. I did what I could do. I did the best that I was given the opportunity to. I'm happy for it. I'm proud of it. Was I Was I really good? No, I wasn't. I'm not going to try to pull smoke or wool over anybody's eyes here. I did what I could do, and some days are better than others. And hey, so what?
And yet,
I played for 6 years at the big league level. I'm happy with that. You know,
and
could it
yet
have been
you're
better?
a big league pitcher. And I mean, that is more than how many percentage can say in the population. So
Right.
you got something to hang your hat on there for sure. I got to ask, you played in the time of Sluggin' Sammy Sosa, McGuire, breaking records. What were the thoughts back then of guys in the league?
Yeah. Well, how can I put this? Are you specifically referring to steroids?
It's
Because
funny.
at the end of the, sorry, go ahead. Finish
No.
your thought.
I want you. I'm curious on your thoughts on this. You're a guy. You got to understand at the time this is going on, I am like, what was that? 90, 98? Does that sound right? 98, I think is when it is. So what am I? I'm 12 years old. So like, to me, none of the other stuff matters. All I'm seeing is just dingers going out, right? Like dinger after
Right.
dinger after dinger. That was
Yeah.
exciting to me. I remember watching those guys and being like, holy crap, they could break the record. This is unbelievable. Hell, Ken Griffey that year had 56. It wasn't like he was far behind. Like he had crushed a ton. Like the whole league was smashing the ball.
Yeah, it's remarkable because the biggest thing that I have is I wonder, maybe I should have used steroids. Maybe I should have leveled the field. I didn't use them. I've been asked many times to use them, and I never did, for fear of Lyle Alzado. Remember Lyle Alzado? He died of brain cancer from steroid use, and that it really stuck with me. And I was scared to death to use them. And I look back now and I'm like, man, like Brady Anderson, you go from 15 to 50 home runs one year. Like, okay, now you look like a freight train instead of this little scrawny center fielder. You know what I mean? Like, what's going on here? Like, you can't tell me you're not on the juice. That was the hardest part for me, is guys are smashing balls that they would go out when you know that they shouldn't be going out. You know, it's like, that's lazy. Whoa, that's not so lazy anymore. That ball's carrying, right? And it really showed to me, the guys that were on steroids during that time was August and September, how much energy they had. Those guys could still go like it was April. And here the rest of us that weren't using them were like, oh, pass me water, give me something, I need energy. You know, it's like, it was a totally different approach to the game, and it made it difficult for guys like myself, that, you know, a marginal big leaguer that had to come in and get guys like Junior up. Not that saying Junior didn't do steroids. I play with him. I know, I can say for certain that I never saw him take them 100%. But having to come in and get guys like Rafael Palmeiro or Mark McGuire out, or those types of guys, that wasn't easy to do, knowing they weren't hurting like I was, or some of my other teammates might be hurting that weren't taking steroids. So that was the hardest part to deal with, was that part of it, knowing that the field wasn't even. It wasn't even close to even.
You mentioned that you've answered that question a lot, and that you'd been asked lots to do or take steroids. So was that just a common thing back then?
Yeah, it really was. It really was. And I'm glad that it got sorted out the way it got sorted out, and the people got exposed for being exposed, because to me, baseball is a game of integrity, and the integrity was lost. And it was lost for a couple different reasons, in my opinion. One, the owners were starting to get fans back in the seats, so they just went, everything's okay over here, right? Yep, everything's good. And they just kind of, you know, turned a blind eye to it. And players were at the cusp of, money was starting to become really, really good. And guys that I know would have never made that kind of money because they took steroids. And that was the hard part for me, is how do I look at myself in the mirror and say to my kids, oh yeah, okay, I'm a millionaire, but I cheated getting there. That to me, I couldn't live with myself doing that. And that was another reason that I didn't do it.
Speaking of integrity of the game, you've probably been asked this one a lot. How about the Houston Astros?
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, cheating's been going on in baseball for a very, very long time. The way they cheated is what upsets me. I'm okay with the guy at second base relaying signs and doing that sort of stuff. Or if you're fool enough on the mound to be tipping pitches and they pick it up and they start tallywhacking you all over the bases and everybody knows your number because you're backing up some base, that's fine. I get that. I can live with that. But when you use technology to cheat, that ain't right. That ain't right. And in my opinion, they should lose everything. They should be stripped completely of everything. I would actually say, you're not the World Series winner, and we're giving it to the other guys.
So I agree 100% with you. What you're talking about with cheating is just part of the game, with the human element, right? If guys can deduce what you're doing and pick up on cues, is that really cheating, or is that just playing the game?
That's a gray area to me. The guy relaying signs from second base, type of stuff.
Is that really a gray area though? Like if as a pitcher you go through the same whatever you want, right? You can have the same routine through each batter. If you don't pick up on that as the other team, and you just go up there and keep your blinders on, hey guys, we're just going to hit the ball, and if you're picking up on the little, like the hidden little gems there, and if you can find a couple of those, why not?
I'm not disagreeing with you on that. Where I draw the line on that for the gray area is, why does a hitter need to know what's coming if he can't figure it out himself and he's getting the information from somebody else on the field while I'm trying to get out of a jam? That to me is cheating. And that's fine. I can accept that. I can live with that part of the game, no problem. But when you start using, a buzzer on your chest or, lighting, when I played, we always felt like the White Sox had something going on the scoreboard when I was with the Mariners. It was a little bit with the Jays, but it was more with the Mariners. They were certain that there was cheating going on, and it was done through the scoreboard, because we would just get beaten by these guys. And it was like, how do we, they come to our place, they can't even hold our cups up, and we go to their place and they bury us. Like, how's that even, something's not right. Like Randy Johnson getting tallywhacked all over the field, and 4 days later he's throwing a no-hitter against them. Like, what's going on here? Like, something's not lining up, right? So that type of stuff is, I think, it's just what happens on the field and how you deal with on the field and how you deal with your teammates getting the information to make you successful. That's not cheating to me. That isn't. Because if the guy at second base wants to relay a sign and I catch him, whether it's a crossover step or he does a little drop step or he steps forward for location, whatever, or, hand signals or whatever, I know that I can get that guy. When next time he comes up to bat, I might put one in his ear flap just for relaying signs. Keep the signs to yourself. Your job is to talk to him on the bench, not on the field. So that's hard. And, a lot of players, they don't even want to know what's coming, right? I know guys that would be like, do you want to know what's coming? We've got their signs. We can relay them from second, whatever, right? That we can we'll figure out some sort of, guys would be like, no, I don't want to know. I want to have my game plan and I don't want to deviate from it. And that's fine too.
I can see how there's a gray area there. When it comes to the technology side, to me as a player, whether we're talking baseball, hockey, basketball, anything like that, where like when you're putting on a buzzer, you're breaking the code. Like when that story came out, I don't know if I heard one person go, well, they're just playing the game. It's like, are they?
Yeah.
I don't feel that. I don't feel that, right? When it comes to stealing signs on the second, yeah, right, man. Can you imagine if all the fans had been able to get in the buildings like they should have been and just give it to them?
Oh, The sad part is they will never pay the full price for what they did.
No.
The fans, I think the fans have more or less forgotten. You know, it's sad because what they did was terrible for the game. You know, the last thing baseball needs is another black eye. It doesn't need it. It doesn't want it. It just, having a scandal like this, it takes people out of the stands. In a game that's already losing its demographic, it's clearly getting older. They're trying to get younger fans in, and they're trying to adapt the game to these younger fans. But to me, the endearing part of baseball when I was growing up was I could bet on that whoever, let's use Griffey as a reference, that Junior's going to be in Seattle his entire career. Now, 3 or 4 years, this guy could be next Hall of Famer. And they're going to ship him out of there because they can't afford him. That to me is where baseball loses its fan base, is that it's so multi-dimensional that in order for me to be a fan, I can't be a fan of a team anymore. I have to be a fan of a player. So whatever team he's on, now that's my new favorite team. And I don't know about you, but like when I was growing up, I knew every single hockey player on every single team, and I had them all memorized.
Yeah.
And I was the same with baseball. I didn't like baseball as much as I did, but I took to it to understand the players and have them, that this guy was on this team and who he got traded for. That part of the game was great for me. I liked that part of it. And now it just seems like it's just a puppy mill. It's just next, and it's sad because baseball is a long game. Like. And to go through and not be able to recognize somebody, where's the joy in that for the fan? I think getting it back down to the basics, having people, teams stay together longer, is, in my opinion, the way to get people back.
I should point out my laughter comes from puppy mill. I don't know if that's a new one or if I just haven't thought of that one in a long time. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. The animal activists won't like that, but I get what you're saying. We come from around Edmonton, the Oilers. Obviously, everybody knows the Oilers last a little bit, right? I mean, McDavid and Draisaitl and everything's been great, and you had the 80s when they were great, but for majority of my life, they were fun to watch because they were a blue-collar team there for a little bit, but they couldn't compete with the New York Rangers, the Toronto Maple Leafs, et cetera, the big, bad money spenders. And then the salary cap came in. And believe me, if you're a free agent and you got the choice to go to Tampa Bay or Dallas or San Jose or whatever, Anaheim, or come up to Edmonton, I mean, Edmonton's got to be good for you to want to go there. You got to want to win because you're going to pick probably the destination of choice over, who's got a little more cash. Maybe not. Would that help baseball? Because now maybe you take away from, in baseball, look at the Yanks, the Red Sox. They spend an awful lot of money.
They do, and I think it's difficult to unfold, really. Does the salary cap add to the uniformity of the league, taking the bottom teams and being able, taxing the high money teams and giving that money to the low income teams to create some sort of utopian society in baseball? I don't think that works.
You don't think it works?
I don't. I don't, because one, if you're a superstar and at the time, like let's use Tampa 15 years ago or 20 years ago when they were crap. Who would want to go there under a salary cap? Like, you just wouldn't want to go there, right? Like, the whole idea of playing is to win. So if you're in it for the money and you want to go to a poor team or a less financially stable team than the Yankees or the Red Sox or the Cubs or one of those higher echelon teams, that's fine. If you're not going to win, does the money matter that much? Because winning is really what you play the game for, in my opinion.
Yeah, I know, but you're talking character now. You're talking two different types of people, and you said this right at the start, right? There's guys that want to make their money, and then there's the other guys.
Yeah.
The other guys still want to make money. I mean, you can't do it for free.
Yeah.
But that's what you're differentiating there. The thing that I don't know. I don't know the baseball world good enough. I just know the top to bottom, the division between the two is very big. Whereas
It's not as big as you might think, though. You know,
No?
it's a lot smaller than it ever has been. But to me, if I'm the commissioner of baseball, and whatever owners group wants to put together a dynasty team for the next 15 years, how can that be bad for baseball?
yeah, but look at that's what the NBA did, right? Like the Golden State Warriors had this team that were like, holy man, who's it? Like you already know who's in the finals before the season even starts. How's that fun to watch?
Because it's sport. It's sport. You never know what's going to happen. Nothing is set in stone ever on any level.
Maybe that's true, except for in basketball, because basketball, you get LeBron James, it pretty much buys you into the finals, does it not?
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Yeah.
I mean,
but that you're comparing two different, vastly different.
True. I
sports,
am
right?
jumping on you there.
And it'd be, and I don't think you can even put hockey in a basketball world.
No, you cannot.
You know?
Basketball is in its own world because simply one player can have such a great impact. You get Connor McDavid, and we talk about it all the time. One great player in the NHL still needs a team around him, right? Like he only plays, I don't know, 20 to like not even 50% of the game. That's what the best player in the NHL does. He plays a third of the game, maybe a smidge more.
Yeah.
And in baseball, you get the best pitcher out there. He pitches once in a rotation, right? Like, I mean, even if he pitches a no-hitter every game he pitches, that's 20-some starts.
Exactly. And that's where I feel like baseball, okay, if you want to have a salary cap it for the amount of earning for the players, not what the team can spend. If the Yankees want to spend $1 billion a year and put 25 guys making 30 mil a year, hey, go get them. If that's the way it's going to be, that's the way it's going to be. That it wouldn't happen. No team could afford to do that, is my point. So having these echelon teams like the Yankees and the Red Sox and the Cubs and all these teams that put money where their mouth is and go after championships, don't think that doesn't drive the rest of the league to try, because it does. It absolutely does. You hear, every year the conversations are the same. Well, who's to beat this year? Well, of course, the Yankees are in the conversation. So Red Sox are in the conversation. All these, the same teams are always in the same conversation. So by taking taxed money and giving it to the lower teams and having them to try to be able to spend that money on free agencies, which was initially designed for, now they're going the other way. They're drafting people, and they become like a farm system for the Yankees and the Red Sox and these high income teams, which is not really fair. But at the same time, what are you doing in order to improve your team from a financial standpoint as an owner? I get it. You may not be in the oil industry and you're not a billionaire. That
I'll tell you what, the oil industry isn't great right now. So
right. Yeah, this is true. That is absolutely true. Some of these owners, they own these teams. They're literally like, they're a toy for them. That's how wealthy they are. They just, it's not their main income. This is their toy, and they go about it that way. They treat it that way. Nobody likes to spend, $200 million a year on payroll and not have anything to show for it. But at the end of the day, why would, these guys are obviously tremendously successful business people. They're spending their money the way they deem fit in order to succeed. So that's the funny thing about baseball, right? It comes back to that 10 thing, right? You're going to have 20 losses. In baseball, it's 40 losses, 40 wins, and 60 in between. And what you do with those is what makes up your whole season, right? So, baseball, the amount of injuries that you have throughout the year, you look at a roster, I mean, you start with 25 guys on your roster. By the end of the season, you've used 50. Sometimes if you have a really rough year, you're in the 60 player category. That's a lot of players to run through your system. So it doesn't always come down to money. It's always, to me, it's always about staying healthy.
Well, I got to say, I have really enjoyed chatting with you. And I just looked at the clock and I'm like, oh, well, maybe I should allow you to get on with your night. I get lost in this. I really enjoyed this. It's always nice to have a surprisingly good conversation, I must say, from my side. I love the diversity of people that I have come on. And I got to give a shout out to Clay over at Prophet River for hooking us up, because this is how it all comes together, right? Like,
Yeah.
So before I let you go, we do a little thing here, a little 5 questions right at the end, the Crude Master Final 5. Shout out to Heath and Tracy McDonald. They've been sponsors of the podcast since the very beginning. And it's just 5 questions for you, long or short. And then we'll let you go. And I promise we are going to get you back on, because this has been, the time has just ticked away. And I've really enjoyed this, Paul.
Well, I appreciate it. I've had a great time too.
Okay, well, the first question I always ask for a guy's first time on the podcast is, I'm always curious who you would want to sit down with and pick their brain the same way I'm doing to you.
Oh, wow. That's a tough one. There's so many people that I'd love to pick their brains apart. I honestly don't even have a good answer for that, because I think my list would be too long. I mean, I guess at the end of the day, I'd probably want to sit down with God. No, like, hey, lay this out for me, man. Like, what's going on here? Like, give me some insight to what was going to your mind during all of this. You know, like this. I don't know. I mean, there's so many different aspects of my life that I would love to be involved with, that people that I would look up to have some sort of input that I have no access to.
Well, that's a good one. But I'll give you a book for you then. My sister put me onto this. It was Conversations with God, an uncommon dialogue by Neil Donald Walsh. Okay,
You got to email me that.
I will. And the book, she gave it to me, and my sister's a spiritual person. She's very, just spiritual. I can say that.
Yep.
And she gave me this book, and I started reading it, and it's a guy talking with God. And I went, this is a load of phooey, right? And then I put it down, and I walked away from it, and I came back, and I went, you know what? Let's play the what if game and say this guy actually talked to God, and approach it from that and do that thought experiment. And it turned into like this fascinating book, like fascinating. So I'll make sure I email that to you, because I mean, unless God comes down and sits on the podcast next week, that's a tough ask. But I can get you something close in a book, and you can listen to it on an audiobook. And I promise it was a fun little listen, and it didn't take long to get through.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
If you get traded, if we go back and you were going to get traded, and you could bring one guy with you, hey man, you're coming with me. You may not like it, but you're coming. We're going to wherever. Who would be the guy you'd bring along?
You know, oddly enough, when I got traded from Toronto to Seattle, Mike Timlin and I were like tighter than 2 coats of paint. And I think having him go with me was probably the best thing. It eased the blow of learning a new team, and you know, he had many more years of experience under his belt than I did, so it was a quick, easy adaptation. And you know, I guess at the end of the day, the simple answer is it'd probably be somebody that I would trust with my life, and he was one of those people.
Well, that's a cool answer. Trust with your life. I like that.
Yeah.
It's Game 7, World Series. You're up 3-2, bottom of the 9th. Bases are loaded, and you're brought in to close it up. Okay? Who's the one batter that you're like, yep, I got this?
Rafael Palmeiro. Oh yeah, hands down. Cinchberger. Game over. I think I want to say I faced him 17 times, and I think I struck him out 12. And I think he got a little dribbler infield hit off me. That was it. Like, it was automatic. I come in to get him. It was just like, oh yeah, Game on.
Foaming at the mouth.
Oh yeah, I couldn't wait. Give me the ball. I don't need no warm-ups. This guy's out.
You get a talent agency calls you. We'll call it, but well, actually no. A talent agency calls you, and they want you to recreate one of the baseball movie classics. You get your choice though, and what role you're taking. What movie are you starring back in?
Probably Bull Durham.
Yeah, frick. Who can argue Bull frickin' Durham?
Yeah, I mean, seriously, that's just an unbelievable movie. And I would come back as Nuke LaLoosh.
You
I would. I'd be Nuke in that movie for sure.
Oh man, I tell you what, that ranks up there as one of the best sports movies of all time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like Kevin Costner is unbelievable, but like just the entire movie is fantastic. Nick LaLoosh too. What a gem.
Yeah, absolute gem. Beauty.
Your final one, what is one lesson you learned along the way that has stuck with you?
In sport?
Sure. Or in business, if it can be either.
Stick-to-itiveness has its rewards. Perseverance pays off. It really does. I think a lot of people take that for granted. They give up too easy. They succumb to doubt way too easy. And I've always been, maybe it's a stubborn streak in me. I don't know. But I think having the ability to just keep pushing through and know that your goal is somewhere down the line, and it doesn't matter whether you take one step forward and two steps back, you're making progress. Every time you take a step is progress. It doesn't have to be leaps and bounds. And not losing that focus is the thing that I think has allowed me to be, successful as an athlete and as a business owner. Is just never stop. Just keep going, keep pushing, keep working hard, because it does pay off.
That's cool. That's a cool way to end it. I appreciate you coming on, Paul. This has been highly enjoyable for me.
Well, I appreciate it, Sean. It's been great. You've done a great job today. I love it. I'm going to start watching listen to all your podcasts now. I'm going to get them all here going. I pulled up your webpage and I'm going at them. I'm going to start listening to them. if it's anything like this is, I'm good. I'm not a podcast guy. I'll be straight up with you. I don't listen to too many of them, but I like the way you do this. This is refreshing. It's fresh. It's neat. It's great. I love it.
Well, I appreciate that. That's a nice compliment from you.
I do. I think you've done a great job. And thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, folks, thanks for joining us today. If you just stumbled on the show, please click subscribe. Then scroll to the bottom and rate and leave a review. I promise it helps. Remember, every Monday and Wednesday, we will have a new guest sitting down to share their story. The Sean Newman Podcast is available for free on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and wherever else you get your podcast fix. Until next time.